ambivalent response.
Go your own way, stones and shadows bite, willows whisper of darkness deep and wide. In the forest, there is no place to hide. Strange paths. Tonight I fear that I will not survive the dying of the light.
Hey, welcome. No, just kidding.
Tone mismatch. Start over.
This is The Dying of the Light, a series from the Starfall Collective. The Starfall Collective is a collaborative storytelling group using the Dungeons & Dragons game system as a vehicle for creating rich and compelling stories in a fictional world we've been developing together for a while. You can find out more about the collective, as well as the stories we're telling, at thestarfallcollective.com. We're back with a new episode. This is our special Memorial Day episode. And we have a subsection of our normal crew here. Let's find out who's in this episode. I'm Sir Robert, a father and entrepreneur, and I am, as usual, the host of this series story. With me tonight are a few friends playing the characters in this drama. Please say your name, something about yourself if you like, and a brief description of the character you're playing. And this time, if you'll focus on just a little overview of what you've been doing for the past little bit that you've been here, that you've been back in the town and people are spreading out. It's been about another week that Yoshka and Neno have come here with a bunch more people, and so it's still nascent. So if you want to say anything about that, you don't have to, but if you'd like to, that'd be great. Why don't we start with you, Jared?
Hey, my name is Jared. I'm playing Yoshka, son of Sashka. I am the wayfaring bard, and over the past, since with all these people now here, Yoshka feels responsible for them, and he's glad these people got to live because all of his life, his people were marking them for slaughter, which thankfully did not happen to them. So he's been, I think, probably trying to act like a coordinator, going between these different people and getting to know them, getting to know what they're about, what their little culture is, and what they want, and what kind of skills they have, and just trying to coordinate needs among the different groups of people, make sure and figure out kind of how to help each of them excavate safely so that they're not constantly opening doors and finding danger.
Okay. And what we'll do is, at the beginning of this episode, I'm happy for you all to ask some questions about what you would know about this group or that group or things like that. We'll spend a little bit of time. And some of those might be like, that's not something you would know about yet. But others might have clear answers. How about you? And I see Josh is here too. Why don't we go with you, Josh?
Hey, I'm Josh, and I am playing the drama in the character Inkatink. I think that Inkatink has been actually probably, as he's gotten over his frustration with Yoshka for leaving, the fact that there are a lot of people in this community is actually probably giving him some of what he had just before the party found him, which was community that he had only briefly experienced. But so I think he's probably helping Yoshka because he, like Yoshka, probably does feel a certain amount of responsibility for these people that have shown up in a place that I think he thinks Inkatink thinks of this place more of his own home as their place, their lair, and these people are in it. Whereas it seems like Yoshka has a lot more of a, this is our place. But either way, Inkatink's probably helping to like make a whole bunch of shovels in one day because he can do the same thing over and over again very quickly so that people have, you know, digging implements to help move earth and, you know, recreate the walls of the city and stuff like that. And it's probably really useful for Inkatink to be able to hear something once and for Yoshka to be able to go back and say, hey, what was that? And Inkatink can repeat it word for word. So he's probably trying to be a little bit of a attaché, an asset to Yoshka as he takes in a lot of new information and handles a lot. So,
And once a day, Inkatink is able to fly from place to place quickly throughout the city if there were some kind of emergency.
Right. And so he's also still keeping up with the public works project of keeping an accurate to scale map of the city. So every day people can come and see this one spot and see what's changed about, you know, that this person has expanded over here and all that kind of stuff. So it probably gives us a bit of an advantage for city planning. So anyway, that's what he's doing.
Cool. Okay, good. Why don't we go with Talad?
Right. Hi, my name is Jacob Burbridge, and I'm playing Talad, who, like Yoshka, is also managing the relations between the various peoples that are here. But instead of managing between the various peoples, it's between the peoples and the party, trying to make sure that we're on their good side because they most definitely outnumber us despite our magical interests.
Okay, good. And this is Talad up to this point has been with the most people.
Yeah.
I mean, the place where you grew up had actually approximately around the same number, several hundred, 300-ish.
He is very used to being a sort of group speaker. I believe he was the son of some important person back in Cult Land. You know?
Yeah, that's right. He was the nephew of Elephine,
Yes.
the sort of high priest, as it were, of the Oravan, of the Old Blood. Yoshka, that also could cause some interesting tensions between, well, basically everybody and Talad, including your dad, Sashka, the other Menowin, but also just everybody. Right? There could be mixed interests there. Aaron Joy, why don't you do yours next?
I'm Erin Joy. I live here in Durham. I'm playing Menno. She, as long as there hasn't been any crisis in the last week, which it sounds like there hasn't, this has been the closest thing to a vacation that she has had since her ordinary life before she was no longer in her home village. And she's loving it. She is spending she's spending the evening with the older people in the various towns, but she's spending all of the daytime hours pretty much with the kids. She on direction from people with greenness, which she doesn't have. She has recruited and is marshaling a little army of tiny tots to redivert streams and clear out paths. And if it involves playing in the mud, and it can be done by people with very tiny fingers, she and her crew of sweet peas are on it. She's also spending a lot of time telling stories and flipping through her various uh, narrations, not really narrations. I asked pictures. The pictures on her skirts that she has been using her whole life to document stories and events. She is basically giving all of these kids a history of peopledom, um, uh, in fairy tales and stories, and hopefully these kids are going back to parents what they learned and heard and did today. But it's her way of helping there be cohesion. If we all know the story of uh, Walker who made the sky rain rocks, then that's part of the thing we know.
And just to remind our listening audience as well as players, lore of that kind is punishable by death of the entire populace. So to be teaching that kind of thing, if it's not being taught as, just sort of idle, fanciful tellings, but, any kind of repeated stories are something the Iron Bell stop, including knowledge of Cinderon or Daratone or anything like that.
Yeah. That might be a good scene to.
So she's being subversive if she's doing that.
Yeah,
She
she's
would know.
absolutely aware of that,
Okay,
and
great.
she has been doing that her whole life, as evidenced by
The tapestries.
yeah.
As it were.
and she can get away with it by, or has been getting away with it, or had been getting away with it
Or thinks she had been getting away with it.
because she tells kids.
Okay.
Because who doesn't tell stories to kids?
Yeah, right.
She's not setting herself up as some history teacher or community organizer.
Yeah.
She's just doing babysitting, for crying out loud. Who could fault some grandmother with babysitting?
Okay.
So that is the fun that she has been doing. Loki in her personal life, though, less fun, more anxiety. She has every day of this last week that she's awakened, she's thought, okay, I can do it. Today's the day. I'm going to explore the waters underneath the fountain. And every day she's let herself get distracted and pulled away and done other community things, and she doesn't quite have the courage to go yet.
Okay. And that sounds good. And just to let you know, I'm just telling you of, you know what? I'll say that later. It's more about the city water layout. Remember, the fountain has those trenches, sort of aqueduct almost. They're not covered or closed. They're running. Okay, sounds good.
What's the question?
Just tell me about Belvari in the big city. He's gonna make it after all.
Yeah. Free screen.
That's right.
No, Belvari almost every day leaves the town. And
Sorry, just to
spends-
clarify, almost every day or almost every night?
He's probably on mostly awake during the daytime.
Okay.
Might
And
be like up a little bit earlier and asleep a little bit earlier, but
It usually takes Chekhov with him.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and as soon as Toll brings in the uplifted tree, sometimes he disappears into the tree and appears out in the woods. But yeah, he's out there. He's looking for new animals to turn into. He's spending a lot of time on his own. He's bringing back food for people. When he is in the town, he now has the ability to create big old walls of water. So he's, offering the service of.
What does that
washing.
mean? Walls of water.
I can tell you precisely what it means,
Ooh.
according to D&D Beyond.
Okay.
Tidal wave. You conjure up a wave of water that crashes down the area within range. It can be up to 30 feet long, 10 feet wide, and 10 feet tall.
Okay.
Any creatures in the area must make a dexterity saving throw or take 4d8 bludgeoning damage and be knocked prone. If there's save successfully, they take half and don't get knocked prone. The water then spreads across the ground in all directions, extinguishing unprotected flames.
And it lasts for.
It goes about 30 feet and then vanishes. So
this is the water version of Wall of Thorns or Brambles or whatever it's called.
something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Just the dimensions are about the same, damage is about the same. And so you're offering.
To like wash out, clean out things using. I mean, I know it's not the same thing as like conjuring the water and it then washing out to the sea, but it will move some dirt, I'm imagining. And then he also has the ability to, not at the same time necessarily, but do sort of the same thing, except much larger. Point within 150 feet of him, all normal plants in a 100-foot radius centered on that point become thick and overgrown. So outside the city, he's doing this to like protect the walls, so there's not just a
As though a barricade,
yeah.
almost. Sorry, and you're doing that. Now there's this like 60-foot-ish gap between the edge of the forest. It's not a firm edge, it's just the trees go. So the edge of the forest, and then as you come towards the walls, you got about 20-ish feet of flat, and then about 30, 40 feet of slope up to the uphill, right, where the wall has been over some amount of ages,
So at the base of the slope, between there and the edge
growing
of the woods,
stuff. And
he's adding. Basically, it makes 4 feet of movement for every 1 foot it moves.
what's that spell called?
Plant growth.
Okay.
And if I cast it over 8 hours, I enrich the land. All plants in a half-mile radius centered on a point within range become enriched for 1 year. To do a little bit of that too. It's pretty cool. Yield twice the amount of food when harvested.
Yeah,
So-
I'm really curious about agriculture in a baritone dirt infested.
So I'm going to say, just as an aside for that, so it's going to take you an 8-hour thing. I'm having to take y'all a day because there's a little travel time. You're going to set some stuff up. So if you spend a day doing something like that, you're in one area, you're benefiting the area, right?
Yeah.
So
For a 1 mile.
this is probably more than anything Toll has done, aside from the awakening itself. This cements a positive relationship between you and you all and the awakened trees, but especially you. You're making all of the plant life, including them, especially healthy and not given to all the things that are happening here. One of the major things, as you all are already aware, is that many there are worms in the ground as normal, but when any of those creatures die, they undie. And so there are also things like undead worms, and there are things like undead trees. I'm going to assume he's not here right now, but I'm going to assume Toll's not awakening the undead trees.
Gotcha.
But so it's an interesting mix.
The
in the
live
forest.
trees like fight the undead nematodes on their roots.
I'm going to say the benefit you're giving them actually makes them somewhat repellent to such creatures.
Nice.
So, in a non-specific way right now, but they appreciate it as being associated with what you're doing,
Nice.
and then they also sort of have an affinity for the town.
Are they positive, neutral, or negative about me walking into them every once in a while?
Let me think about that.
Okay.
I don't know. That's a good question. Okay, what else?
I think at some point he would try to sit down with the guy that I don't know his name of the other Ren and be like, "Hey, what's it like? You've lived in a village.
Mhm.
I've never seen that before. What do you do? And what do you think about this big old village?"
You're talking about the Saracon guy up north.
Yeah.
Now, okay, I'll talk about that in a second. That sounds good. We'll get into some of that. Matt, why don't you go next?
Hey, hi, my name is Matthew Talamini. I'm a writer and web developer based in Providence, Rhode Island. You can find my stuff at MatthewTalamini.com. That's Matthew TALAMINI.com. I play the shirtless wizard Diamondback.
My keyboard doesn't have an L key.
What?
My keyboard doesn't have an L key.
Just hold it down for a while.
Ah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 12 L's in my URL.
It's less expensive.
No, but Diamondback really has not. This whole adventure so far has not been by choice for him. He was driven out of his home, and then the only way he's been able to survive has been staying with this group. So this is sort of the first time that he's had any kind of freedom to pursue sort of his own thing. And so he's really been keeping pretty separate from everybody else. He has sort of a tall building that he's claimed as his own, and there are zombies in there, zombies and skeletons, up to 4. And he's been, painting it and building it up and installing doors with bars and making it sort of defensible somewhat. But he's also been
bars, like stout wooden beams that you're putting on them.
No, I mean, ideally, what a door should have is the equivalent of a deadbolt. Something that if you're inside, you can.
I would say that.
A deadbolt.
Yeah, exactly. Necromancer, a necromancy bolt.
But you don't have.
Sure. Yeah. So maybe he hasn't been able to actually set that up, but just generally. But also, he has been helping out around town. He's particularly interested in assisting Tull with the tree thing. In whatever way, like if there's some magical way he can assist making more trees or arranging them, military strategy-wise or whatever. He likes this idea of trees. They seem extremely powerful, and he's into it. And he's also been he's been handing out unextinguishable torches, just as sort of party favors to the citizenry. So there are probably a dozen or so of those around, with whatever spell slots he has left over at the end of the day. And he's been generally sort of half the day or so, he's sort of open for business. If any villagers want to come by and have a word, if there's anybody who's interested in the dark arts, in becoming something like an apprentice or whatever, like he's the doctor is in, as it were. If people have problems that they need a necromancer's help with, like, he's happy to assist with that. I don't know what those might be. Actually, I do.
Diamondback used to say.
But no, like he's available to the villagers, and he does want to put his dark tentacles into their minds. Like, I'm useful. Death doesn't have to be real. You don't have to let go of your loved ones when they die. You don't have to mourn. You can do this instead, sort of thing. And
it's super healthy.
Yes, Diamondback comes from a culture that has a very healthy relationship with death. No,
a very unique relationship.
It's a
unique relationship with death. Yeah, but that's it. I don't know whether he's also been doing the things that you, Mr. DM, know that he's been doing. That's one half of the day. And then sort of the doctor is in business hours, office hours is like the other half of the day.
Okay, that sounds good. So let me give a couple of descriptions about just some arrangement of people. And I'll go briefly. And then we'll just jump into you guys getting a chance to do a Q&A with me. I like the idea of this in part because it lets our listening audience, get a feel for the world and what the characters are experience in less circumstantial and immediate ways. So you may, a couple of things really quickly. You may recall that the people have essentially, this was at your, tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe this was at what you had decided last time, that the people have essentially spread out villages that are related to each other, or sorry, that are unrelated, they're just random sets of people, have spread out around the southern circumference of the city. So they're cleaning out the outer strip of, there's almost like not a boulevard, but something maybe a little less sophisticated than that, but it's a good 40-foot wide swath on the interior, maybe 60-foot wide swath on the interior of the wall that goes all the way around the town, the whole city. It was filled with muck, just like the rest of the city. So that's been the main thoroughfare to get from village to village. Essentially, it feels like you're all in a line, but you're really, around the southern circumference. You cover approximately the southernmost 60%. Okay, so it's a big kind of swath there, but you're pretty thinly layered.
Like Canadians.
So like Canadians, exactly. They find a building here or there near the wall. They clean it out. It's got a whole Nehemiah vibe or something. And you're not actually repairing the walls, but I would like to know from you what the responsibilities of people are in their little zone that they have, which for a smaller town might be, a 50-foot swath, 60-foot swath of wall right in front of their one place. But for bigger ones, it could be, a chunk. Have a bunch of people. So that's one thing going on. Several of the townsfolk, importantly, one of the sets of survivors who were a kind of riparian people, river dwellers, have requested the
Aqueduct.
aqueducty bit where the drain is. Thank you. This sort of there, and they've taken it upon themselves to try to unblock that. It's been who knows how long. Miradao has requested another. It's on the opposite side there, and then there's two more in the city, north and south. So there's kind of an eastward and westward. They're not exactly due east, west, north, south, but it's in four directions. So those people are doing that. Everybody that you all brought through, Yoshka and Neno, along with the Menowin. The Menowin are used to traveling around, and they traveled between Cinderon and Wira. And that's just a circuit that y'all have done before your whole life, Yoshka, until this point. And I guess not for them anymore either. So the people accumulated are about 70, 60, about 2/3 Wira and 1/3 and then so 200 Wira ballpark, 200 Wira, 100 Cinderon. And the reason that's important is that has a lot to do with how they put the world together. The people of Wira typically are used to bandits. They're used to raids. They're used to a lot of war, infighting. These are the peaceable people that the Orban were trying to eradicate. But nonetheless, the threat that they have in their hearts is the men and orcs and other species who band together or don't or whatever and go out marauding, robbing, burgling, whatever. The Cinderon people are always expecting terror from the forest, in the form of beasts of various kinds. It's just their sort of, to borrow a phrase, an excellent phrase, it is a part of their transcendent dream of reality. That's what's happening in the world. And there's one group of people. It is the people of Sarakan who grew up in and are acquainted with Garatone. They actually have moved north into the city, relatively far away from anywhere else. It's where the buildings were taller and they were used to living and not spread out but taller up. It turns out they're 10 minutes from Diamondback in a third quadrant, but it kind of, although they don't themselves have any undead, it's kind of an undead place. It's got a New Orleans-y, voodoo-y kind of feel up there, because that's the culture that they are used to, is dealing with undead. They're not super keen necessarily on Diamondback's undead, but they're familiar with undead servants, and as long as Diamondback keeps them on a leash, magically or physically, they're fine. They understand it. The others are kind of creeped out by it because it's weird, man. Not entirely, but that sort of thing. So that's the arrangement. You still have a ramp all the way around the wall, except for a small excavation that Belvari made once. So just to let you know, it's hard to get out of the town because you walk up to the wall and it's a wall. And it's easy to get into the town because you walk up the hill and there's a cliff. That cliff is 30 feet or so. So I'm not saying it's like people can easily just jump in and have no problems. But you're all aware of that as a strategic, issue. Belvari, you've been going out and fortifying with a lot of growth, making it brambly and such. Mm-hmm. When you make an area brambly, the plant life grows. I was just reading the spell. It grows and it stays, but it doesn't sustain permanently really hard. It goes back to its natural state over time.
Gotcha.
So it's going to be, it'll be there for a month, tough, whatever it is. But my
idea is to make it a little harder until we can make a wall.
And as you said, the trees are totally for it. It's unclear to you all exactly which trees are awakened sometimes because they just are still sometimes. Maybe you get to know them.
They're in the city sometimes.
Some of them are in. Some of the smaller ones, the larger ones can't make it in. The southern and only entrance to the city is that round gate that opened up, but it is still, or I should say, not gate, but gateway. It's a short tunnel. It's like extra thick wall right there, but it's open. The trees are over there. It's not utterly undefended, but there it is. Okay, so anybody ask stuff or tell stuff? We can do Q&A until y'all feel like you've done it.
How big is the opening where opened it up? I can't pronounce dragon names.
It is the full height, almost the full height of the wall. So the wall is, about 30 feet. Mm. So it's about a 25-foot diameter, almost exact circle. Does that make sense? Okay. The bottom of it's flat, so it's not like, it doesn't make a circle at the bottom, but the bottom, is flat and then it goes 25 feet. It's biggish. You can walk 2 carts, let's just say, 2 carts each direction at the same time without squeezing. 2 normal wagons.
Is that 4 horses wide or 2 horses wide?
It's 2.5. 1 undead, the half is undead.
No.
A horse and a half pulling each cart.
That's right. They get really close. It looks like 3. Anybody else? Good. Tyler, do you want to ask anything else about that?
Not really. now is not. I wanted to do something with that, but this is the Q&A part, so. No.
You can say stuff.
All right. Talon's probably going to start working on fortifying that part. He has this sort of fantasy that he'll be able to just carve this intricate doorway that everyone that's going in and out of the town, like the hunters and people, will have to walk through, and he'll make it very, very nice.
And when you say that, you mean like the walls of the thing. You want to carve murals or.
Well, he wants to actually like make doors. Again, it's a bit of
Yeah, I get it.
fantasy for him, but he wants to make doors that can open and close.
Wooden.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or probably stone, but it'll be wood with a little bit of stone overlay on it.
Okay.
So
You'll need. There's some planning to do for that, and you have
Yeah.
to go get stone and stuff.
Yeah.
That sounds totally great as a thing to do, and you can enlist anybody who's willing for that. Inkatink, you mentioned.
rotation door, but it goes this direction through
One,
the round.
if I can add one note,
Sure.
Yoshka will be curious what Talid thinks of this black stone and what kind of relationship he forms, because I think it's a kind of stone that you've never seen either.
That's correct.
Well, it's not very workable. As far as I know, it's not very workable, but it is extremely pleasant, which is usually the trade-off that you get with stone. Like, you either get stone that's really easy to carve, but isn't inherently like nice to look at in natural form, and then you have stone that's really nice to look at when you just pick it up off the ground, but it's also very hard to carve into something very
Marble.
beautiful. Yeah, like that.
Okay.
Really pleasant, you mean you can get really crisp shapes from
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Yeah, that kind of thing. It's very intricate.
Yeah, I think that
Um,
if Talid is going to be doing stoneworking and is moving into some sort of construction project, Inkatink would be very interested to help him and basically assist him with that, because Inkatink doesn't have necessarily a lot of his own original creativity in engineering, but he has a lot of savant sub skills that he can lend to the process. So
Talon will be very helpful. Will be very grateful for that.
So that's a thing where making full-sized doors for this, like if depending on how you would arrange them, it could be something that rolls away, something that swings open, in or out. There's lots of different things you could do. You could just be a block. You could just be a block that has one part that opens, whatever. You may or may not have the engineering skill to make something solid, but you get there by trying, right? You first barricade, then you make it better, and improve it.
Probably just going to be a wood wall with a door in it for the first few minutes. For as long as it takes.
Inkatink, you mentioned making tools for people. That's something you can do rapidly.
yeah, he
So-
wanted to make like digging implements for shaping and moving earth. Yeah,
Yeah. So
like adzes, that kind of thing.
The trees are tending. So the awakened trees are tending to tend to the unawakened trees, and are very happy to break off dead branches, which makes it better for the trees, and give them to you all. So you have a supply of wood,
Plate them down for us.
just in the form of large branches.
Okay.
Y'all can figure out what to do with that. But if you are able to carve Inkatink, or if Talid shows you some stone carving principles that you are able to use for wood carving, you basically, for shovels, make essentially paddles, or they look like boat oars, kind of, with a little hollow in them, that are just a single piece of wood, and people can use them and scoop.
A toll.
He's not here.
I have this. Okay. All right.
Whatever we don't need for a project, Neno would advocate we stockpile, and we stockpile in the little mini villages around the border, because we're low on defensive things, but fire is useful. And we're living in stone buildings, so we are as impervious to fire as we're going to get.
That actually reminds me of something. You said that there are undead trees that are just about everywhere. They look like dead trees, but they're also alive, I guess, something like that. Could we use Belvaris or Tolls or whoever's it was, awakened trees to find the undead ones and then cut those down for like building and firewood?
Sure.
just as an idea.
Yeah, that's good.
Because
They're
apparently-
happy.
Thing is undead boards, and also what happens to trees if we hash them?
Well, it's probably just like it would probably just be like a dead tree that's
As some sort
that's
of
still
weird
taking in the
force.
nutrients. But like how a skeleton would drink a cup of water and it would just spill through the bones, something like that. So it would be a service to the trees, and we wouldn't have to cut down any of the non-awakened ones that the awakened ones are tending to.
They do have, a lot of moss and fungus growing on them. I mean, that kind of thing. Holes with bats. Whatever. Okay.
And I was going to say, this occurred to me at some point, and I didn't want to interject, but I think Inkatink would also like to spend, at least 1 or 2 days a week. He would, for a few hours, help Nino with the kids by teaching them songs that he's heard, or whatever. He's got a lot of lore and rattling around in his head, so he would probably help them. Teach them about the sounds that the different animals make. Blah blah blah.
Hopefully, help Nino keep the kids away from Diamondback.
Trying. Speaking of kids, when Toll gets back, we got to do something with this. I love the idea that there's a kid that Toll keeps finding in the trees, in the awakened trees. Keep trying to keep him out of the trees, and he refuses to not climb in the trees.
That sounds good.
Have I had any luck attracting any members of the villagers, townspeople?
Dice rolling is about to commence.
Let's see here.
See more
Give me a
20s.
couple of 6s and a couple of 4s. There's one.
Do any of them want power?
Some handbills appear around town.
Have any of them experienced recent sufficient trauma in their lives as to make them hungry
Sure, really much
for?
sand in their face.
No, not yet, Diamondback. However, there is one set of people that have poked around a little near you, calling for affinities, and there's one set that are seeming like they're not just like a weird zombie dude. They're coming over and sending a few people who say, like, what's going on with this guy? Why is he allowed to be the way they're thinking of it, right? Because there's like good, decent folk, but if the good, decent folk are permitting this, maybe this is a kind of good and decent folk, and it's just
I'm
like
very good.
Just has tenure.
Stop.
But you see what I mean? That's kind of
Mhm.
and they're finding as they interact with you lightly that you're not, sending your zombies to attack them or anything.
Oh yeah, nothing like that. Completely safe, beneficial to society. Do we know any names or?
Not yet. You don't know any names yet. I have attached some meaning to the affinities.
Okay.
They're reticent, and as it usually is with people who have stranger aversions, which is like literally everyone in your world all the time.
Me too.
That's right. Once you get past a certain hump, that kind of thing is more free flowing. Names and personal details and whatever.
I have a theory that lots of my little kids are vaguely intrigued by Belvari, but super, super intrigued by Chekhov. Because animals are no good, except for apparently this one.
Yeah. So, and a lot of the people around in general, the weirder people don't really have a weird animal thing. They know about how Cinderon people talk about that. They don't have that quite the same experience. But there are some animals that have been brought through with the various people there are chickens, pigs from Garatone, chickens and pigs from Garatone. There are a few donkeys. There are a few, different kinds of rabbits that people are cultivating in your current state in sort of controlled indoors ways. Like there's somebody making giant farms, but they're aware of that, and they have been made aware that they shouldn't do things like, bury an animal that dies.
Mm.
If it dies, so the Saracon people have said, as they've just mingled, things. When an animal dies, eat it fast, or
feed it to the pigs,
salt it or burn it. Yeah, Josh.
Can I ask you an odd question? What's the relationship between living creatures and eating undead things? Like if you feed the pigs a bunch of undead worms, do they get indigestion? Do they say, "Hey, flesh is flesh," and they eat it and they plow through it?
They generally avoid it. It is animals in general will avoid the putrefied flesh of long dead things. That said, some creatures don't care. Pigs are more indifferent, although the humans that own the pigs are averse to it and don't pig, right? Because it's like, that's kind of gross. There are plenty of buzzards, various kinds of birds like that, scavengers of various kinds, don't have a problem finding the carcass and chewing on it. So
I would imagine that the chickens are pretty gung-ho about eating undead worms and undead bugs and stuff too, right?
Yeah, the chickens don't really care.
Okay, so the chickens are actually a public health. Sorry?
Puts gravel in their gut and spit in their eye.
Yeah. So the chickens are actually making the city a safer, healthier place, right? Because they're running around eating a lot of these bugs that might otherwise just be crawling loose. Okay, cool. All right.
This is Yoshka's civic leadership.
So something undead that is processed through the guts of a chicken is not undead when it comes out the other end anymore?
Essentially sufficiently deconstituted.
Right.
Diamondback would like to carry out a series of experiments using his spell Protection from Good and Evil to ascertain what is the limit of undeath. How fine do you have to chop a living being that has become undead before it becomes dirt?
What living being do you use?
A squirrel.
Okay.
Neno wants the same answers, but as regards burning damage. How much burn damage can something take before it just is ash deconstituted enough to no longer be undead?
So would you?
Whereas Diamondback is using the chill touch cantrip.
I would just stick Diamondback on it.
Okay.
Assuming he would do it.
Roll me, Diamondback, just roll me a generalized arcane advantage. The advantage here is that you have time and energy to study for some time.
Yes. 20.
And are you willing to entertain Neno's question about fire?
Yeah, I'll use a different. Sure, yeah, I can light a torch and use it.
Okay. Roll it again. Another Arcana check with advantage here for me. For a set of experiments that'll take you a few days, each one to kind of look through.
This one's going to be an 18.
Okay. Yeah, so basically for the fire, for Neno's, your finding is that having superficial burn damage is not meaningful to the undead, and burn a zombie, for example, a zombie squirrel or whatever you're using, to a skeletal squirrel that is weaker but still animated, and you can burn the bones, and if you get them burned enough that they're, easily crunchable and deconstitutable, they stop.
They're just ash.
If you get them to like basically ash, I mean, it doesn't have to be like fine ash. It can be ash in chunks and stuff, little bits and pieces. But basically, you have to get them to deconstitute into skeletal. Chill touch
Necrotic
Back.
damage.
is necrotic damage. Let's see. That's a great question. I researched this a little bit ago because I was curious what the D&D, what the 5e sort of position on this was. And it turns
Right,
out there
'cause
is not. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, can't you heal a undead being with necrotic energy?
In 4th edition,
No.
Doesn't work
there were
that
ways
way.
of doing that kind of thing.
Okay.
5e
Okay.
is basically it's and it
Okay.
is of the kind necrotic, but
Okay.
it basically leaves it up to the interpretation of the DM how the world gets structured or constructed for that.
Okay.
Interpretation of that Diamondback is that for something like Chill Touch, that undead, I would give something like a natural resistance to necrotic damage, but it still hurts them, and that you need a comparable amount of damage to the fire. So what you see happening with Chill Touch is that the undead squirrel gets, when it gets, it's pained and kind of squirmy, maybe when it's getting into it, and it gets increasingly lethargic as it gets more and more of this damage. And at some point, it's sort of like able to twist and lurch.
Well, I think that necrotic damage makes things rot away and
Yeah.
turn into mush and fall off.
Yeah. So as that's happening and it loses its ability to locomote and so forth, it just sort of grinds or melts to a halt.
But once again, you have to get rid of. You have if there's just a rib cage and a spine and one arm left, is that still an undead squirrel skeleton trying to go about its undead squirrel business?
No.
Okay.
But if it's a squirrel skeleton, that one could be. Some of them aren't. Some of them
So
are.
it's something like if you blast away like half of the bones, then it stops being animated.
Yeah. And for mechanics, for how to interpret that in mechanics, when you do damage to it, that's
Right.
what you've done.
Yeah.
It's
Sweet.
in the in-world experience, it's the opposite. When
Diamondback
you've
would
done
also.
that to it, you've done lethal damage.
The reason he's doing these experiments is he wants to know what is the thing, what force is animating all these, everything around here, what is doing this.
Roll me another Arcana check, this time without advantage because of reason.
Right. This is more theoretical and difficult.
Yeah.
6.
You're guessing it's mayonnaise?
It's all this
Just
mayonnaise coming up from the underground.
Maybe
it gets
it's
on the
Maybelline.
skeletons and makes them walk.
It's a reference to an old Disney movie. The whatever of Race to Witch Mountain.
Mhm.
Oh, man.
That wasn't the movie, but that was a good one.
During
The
Vin Diesel.
cat from outer space
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
with the collar, telekinesis.
Good
Yeah.
What makes it tick? I don't know, mayonnaise. Anyway,
That was so good. That cat was so snarky.
Okay, so Diamondback, did you roll a 6 or was that a 6 with your bonus?
It was 3 plus 3 is 6.
Okay, yeah, you don't have a good handle on it yet. You're not. You have some theories, but you're dubious of most of them. So, okay,
Okay.
what else? Anybody else?
Oh,
Specific, general, anything?
During the first week, as Yoshka and Inkatink have gone to each village to help them
Hamlet.
excavate places for themselves? Have they needed more shovels or move earth components?
They're happy for either. The move earth components, they grow, right? So and they grow not entirely consistently. You have to search and find a component. So farming them out of the nearby area, you're having to go further and further afield. You might have somebody goes half a day's travel to get to where they might find some. If Inkatink does that, he's going to find some. But you're basically harvesting out a radius from the town, which gets increasingly dangerous.
Plant components, though, might become more available.
They will, and though it's still like got a certain amount of, not every, say, willow tree that has a bark that's magical. Not every particular willow tree has that magic in it.
Could we, like, selectively farm
Yeah.
components? Like if we find a patch of mushrooms that have firebolt in them, could we like take those mushrooms and then put them in a patch of soil in our village and then just sort of cultivate
Are
those?
you going to do that?
Probably.
I know that you like mushrooms. Are you going to spend some days on that experiment?
If he gets the chance, not just mushrooms, but just like anything. If he gets the chance, he's totally going to do that because one, he likes mushrooms.
Such a
and
good
two,
idea.
Yeah, it does.
Anybody who's going to spend some time specifically investigating that, you can feel free to roll me an Arcana check. I would actually like an averaged.
Diamondback's
Arcana.
busy doing other experiments. He said he's
Average.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Okay, average Arcana and Nature,
Okay.
but because advantage goes away with the average, you can go ahead and add a d6 to it.
Oh, sweet. Can I get a d6?
These experiments are not fast for most things because the thing has to grow, and then you have to experiment.
Is there like a spell that makes them grow faster? Like faster?
There's a Bavari that is. That can.
There is. Okay.
Also, fungus just
Fungus does grow fast,
Um,
and in this area, it's moist.
I would deploy some kids. Whatever kids seem to lean toward plants, I would deploy some kids as talent hangers on.
Okay.
Science day.
science.
Not
So-
many problems you can't fix if you don't throw enough kids at it.
It's going to take you some time to earn the trust of the parents. These are refugees who everyone's been slaughtered, and they're going to be close to home. And
Maybe
just to say, not that you can't.
No, that's a good point. I
Downtime
have
after.
her on a walking loop. She doesn't have jobs during the day. She just has a walking loop from village to village along the 760 village lit. And so she gets to see everybody 2 or 3 times a day. And she's a Pied Piper of a person, and she dances jigs with her jingly pants, which are then attraction.
Will
Because they're
you,
very metally.
will you pass me all of those d8s?
all the d8s. Do you know that you have one d10 that is not the same as any of the other d10s?
I didn't know that.
And this one is the same, but the numbers are turned.
Oh.
Also, everybody being so stressed and having so
See if
much
it's the
to
same
do
as
to
yours.
set up a home, the fact that a grandmother is willing to entertain their kids out of their sight for 2 hours in the safest place they've ever been in, they're fine.
This is what all the others are like.
So what I did is, for some of these burrows, I just rolled an affinity roll for you to see where you are, and in order, going from west to east,
This is still weird.
there is one town, or I should say one borough or whatever, further west than Miradau. And this is on a scale of 1 to 10.
Gotcha.
They've got a 50% affinity level for you. That's how much they trust you as like a trusted person who they can do it needs to be higher than that for their kids to be going with you anywhere or leaving their site. But Miradau rolled an 8. The next one in was a 2.
Sorry, what was the 50?
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. 50%, 100%. Should have said it that way.
Miradau's kids love you.
That's
Or
right.
the parents are like, yeah, we remember.
25%, 100%, 37.5%,
Okay.
Thanks.
and 62.5%.
And the 62.5%, I'm all the way around to the other side of the river dwellers by that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some of those are a little bit loose because they're not like firm villages. It's like clusters of people.
Well, take time and very charming. Very charming. I'm -1 charming, but
Yeah, interpret it as just gradient of trust that you've earned.
Jangly pants.
So just to clarify that question I had asked a little
Jacob.
more,
We let Kiki out the back door.
Yoshka intends to go and use all of the, I'm trying to find it, 738, is it?
Mhm.
He's just going to dole those out liberally. So as much as their people have the ability to cast cantrips, he'll try to stalk them up.
And they do.
Okay, so
in general, people here can cast cantrips.
okay, cool.
Past that, so here's a mechanic I told y'all about a long time ago. I'm just going to remind you, just to give you a sense of, just y'all haven't encountered it very much. Cantrips are very easy for people to cast. It just, you take them on, you do it. And everybody's about a level 0 person, right? So they just can do it. If you try to cast a spell above your level, so like a 3rd level spell, but you're a regular old person, for every level above you, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, you have a 20% less chance of being able to cast it successfully, and you take damage if you don't. So a random person who gets powerful components isn't going to be practicing. They're going to kill themselves with spells. You'll get a couple of people who are like willing to risk a level 1 spell, even though they're just a random commoner-ish person, villager. But generally speaking, they're okay with cantrips. They're not okay with this crazy like mixing and matching stuff. Notwithstanding some people like Diamondback's tribe, where y'all have cultivated this practice in your people.
Okay. So do I hand all of those out to them? And
You tell me. Do you hand them all out?
I ask each leader, like, hey, we have a lot of this.
What do you want them to do?
How much do you need? Like, do you want shovels or do you want these? Just to clear out homes for themselves and their area.
They're all happy to do that. People are not used to a lot of very hard labor here, generally speaking. They use cantrips for stuff. That's the preferred way. Resources are hard. You don't have a lot of metal. There's not a lot of carving tools. There's not a lot of stuff. If you can make something move from one place to another with a magic spell, you do it. So they're very happy for that. Y'all had previously used something like a quarter of them on building the wall around your thing. Gary was helping with that. Belvari. The rest of them, yeah, they'll take whatever resources you can give them.
And I'll just
And they're
mention,
not wanting to venture out into the forest.
I'll just mention, I suppose Yoshka would actually pass Belvari, since he's been, if he's like, hey, do you mind if I give these all out?
Okay. I don't want them.
Okay. I'll
Oh,
give
we
them all
should
out to just help them
say,
do it faster.
Hey, do some clearing of. At some point, we need to tell people that it's time to start clearing the ramp away from the wall.
I maybe for the first week, I probably just want to help them get homes and just be here for a few days. And one of my questions would be too, I would ask my dad. I would kind of, as a question, propose to him that the Menowin kind of once they've gotten set up, they be go-betweens for the villagers, since that's what we've always been.
Mhm.
and I would ask that see if they would compile, and this is in the context of me trying to gently, not much, like stretch my dad's comfort level, because Yoshka is recognizing this huge disparity between what we've been through and what they've been through. And I realize there's some need for us to, we can't just talk to them like we talk to each other, or they'll be freaked out. So I'm kind of saying things to him like, maybe you could just make a list of everybody's tools and things that everybody needs, and then also skills that everybody has. And then we can maybe talk to Sarah Khan about going grocery shopping, like taking a trip for some.
Wow. You want to see what I just rolled for the responses to that?
15 ones.
1 and 20.
People have some opinions. So
Wow.
Yeah.
The town is
I
polarized.
rolled a 1 and a 20.
Wow.
The town, and what I was rolling for there, I'm going to see what the mitigating rolls for those are. I was rolling for their trust, no, the people at large.
Okay.
Their trust of an outside party coming through their towns asking them things.
Okay.
To many of them, that's the one, it has a strong similarity to the Iron Bell.
Plus, we got a lady with bells on her pants.
To many of them, although hers are brass, which is, I don't know, maybe that matters. They're not the kind of like.
They probably can't tell.
To many of them, however, you two in particular have a heroic stature because of the things we talked about when you met them. I'll tell the rest of you guys, a little bit of lore has leaked to Inkatink, Diamondback, Belvari, Talad, and Toll about Yoshka and Neno. Yoshka and Neno were gone for around a month. And then they just suddenly arrived with 300 people. You may have shared with each other what you did, but what you guys heard from the townsfolk of these various hamlets and villages is essentially that there was a point where the Menowin divided up the refugees and essentially protected and guided them to get here. So they were in groups of a dozen each, 10 groups. That's how they came through the circle approximately. And 10 groups of around 2 dozen to 30 people each. And the group that had Neno and Yoshka have been spreading a couple of stories. And one story had it that Neno and Yoshka, besides things like, were able to handle some bandits with relative ease, Neno and Yoshka took on a small tribute patrol by themselves in order, not entirely, I suppose, but in order to protect the people. And they killed them both. The small tribute patrol was 2 people. It was like Yat and his other person, his subordinate, and they successfully took on the Iron Bell little tribute patrol, killed them, and the villagers were like, "Great, googly moogly," or whatever. So Yoshka and Neno have a reputation, and that has also radiated to you guys some. Now, mitigating roles. So for my 1, this is going to be how severely some people are skeptical that you're trying to put yourself into an Iron Bell position, or may even be Iron Bell. Right? So a 1, if I roll a 1, they're really hating this whole checking in thing. Okay. If I roll a 20, that's more of like they kind of don't like it. They're reserving, but reserving judgment, but you guys don't really seem like Iron Bell types. Fair enough?
Yeah.
What is it?
I rolled a 20.
Nice.
What in the world?
I really
That's
did.
a 1 and a 20 and a 20 in a row.
Wow.
And that was with the one die, so it's not like
One I rolled a 1 with. Okay, now for the 20, I'm going to roll this one. This is the people who, like, you guys are great. If I roll a 1 on this, they're like, these guys are great. 20, they're like, all in. Will you please rule over us? That sort of, you know what I mean. Like, these guys can handle stuff, and we're
grab you and
safe.
put a crown on you.
It's going to be basically how safe they feel in trusting you with their lives, with their welfare. So let's roll with them.
Him, or is this about the Minuan that are traveling around?
It's you two,
Okay.
right? This is affecting your reputation with the ones who are there. That bleeds into the Minuan reputation and also the rest of the party's reputation in some sort of like derivative ways.
I was gonna say
Right, well,
Inkatink has been traveling around with Yoshka doing a lot of this shaking hands and kissing babies stuff. So
Better than
Sorry.
kissing.
shaking
Alright.
babies and kissing hands. I apologize.
Whoa.
17.
So we've got basically like people loyal to a new empire and
The one
a rebellion.
with the 1, they rolled a 20, which really mitigates the reticence. What that really means is they're just not too keen on authority figures. You guys are like specifically trying to do evil. They're just like, I wish we could just be left alone. That's how that 1's interpreted. The 20 I'm interpreting as, again, they're very confident that y'all are capable and they're in good hands, and they're willing to let you direct their efforts and so forth to some reasonable extent.
They're not forcing you to.
In that case, we should sick them on clearing out their area of the outside wall sooner rather than later, because suddenly we have a lot of responsibility to keep them safe that they prior were willing to bear on their own shoulders probably, and now they're relying on us.
Another question I have is, as Yoshka has, Yoshka's curious because this past month has been one of his big opportunities to be exploring the use of the Fey magic he's learned from the tree ladies in that dream. So, and he's been trying to help lift spirits, doing like just inviting everybody to say a nightly concert, something like that, for a song of rest.
And doing so, each time you do, uses some component that you have.
Okay.
Just to point out, uses a
Yeah.
speech type, comfort type, healing type component.
I'll do 7 because I'm
That
currently
sounds
just thinking of the first week.
And just roughly randomly pick one of the kinds that is similar-ish to what you're doing. So not like a lightning bolt thing, but more like a
It depends on the
Okay.
show.
lightning hug.
Yoshka's curious, like between that and enthralling performance, which I saw as an example in said like enthralling performance. Bad bards can use this to be a leech on some people for a good while, but Dudley Do-Right bards can use this to lift the spirits of the oppressed. So I'm curious, like he's keeping an eye on like especially the downtrodden, no villagers, but everybody. How are their spirits?
This is Matrix 3.
That's yeah.
I didn't
It's
like
the
that.
apocalypse, but it's an awesome rock concert.
Let me see here.
Rock concert.
Yoshka, here we go. And you've got
So I'll do, since I was imagining the enthralling performance and the Song of Rest. Song of Rest, I would use with the intent of that mechanic that you mentioned, where it's like it gives them +1 to their sleep score.
Mhm.
So if they're fully fine, that makes them wake up with inspiration. If they're not, which I imagine they're not, it makes them like less
Yeah.
troubled sleep or something.
So, and inspiration doesn't exactly work the same way for just random villagers. I mean, the idea of it is they have a good, they're well rested and good. Yeah. Just to say, it's not exactly the same
Okay.
thing. But it's equivalent. So yeah, basically what's happening here is for this first week, for the first night, everybody's just cramped in this little inner village inside of the city, right?
A kingdom of dirt.
That's right. It takes you
Probably on the slimy floors.
yeah.
It's probably not
It's been-
dry.
it's-
The whole
place
place
has
has
a lot of water in it still. It has taken this whole week to clear out a narrow channel along the outer rim of the city. I think we're talking about, some miles of that are feet, and you can't just you can heave it over, but it's going to be not like out magically of the city unless they're getting up a 30-foot wall over somehow. That said, and there are ways we can do that. I'm okay with that. I'm just to say.
Push them into non-lived-in spots.
You can do that. There's all kinds of other things I'm fine with.
Can
So-
bury those bone snakes a little bit more.
That's right. These people are this week just settling in.
Okay.
For the first several nights, they're coming back
Getting to
to sleep
buildings.
back in the cramped, place. They maybe have their animal set there in some places, and they're trusting that they'll be okay, or something like that. It is for the first week they're not settled in and having nice dinner times with the family around the table.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
And
What
what about their morale?
morale is improving? There's a lot of trauma still. It's been a week, and some of them lost their homes, but some of them lost their families and their children and their husbands and wives and parents and friends.
Speaking of which, do we know if or how many people disappeared in transit?
None
Just
that you
what
can
I was. Really?
That's a surprise to me.
No reports except for that one kid from Mirado.
As I'm going out in the woods, what am I seeing? Are there any undead snakes, stuff like that, or is it mostly?
You do see apparitions are pretty common. When I say common, I mean it's not. It stops being surprising to you to see random looking ghosts or whites or things like that. I'm assuming you don't go super close. Okay, you see one, maybe you do. I don't know. What do you do? What do you do if you see a random Baisugen type ethereal-ish creature?
Yeah, I mean, I might test them out, go over and see how they interact.
Yeah, roll me just for a couple of them. Roll me 2d20s, and we'll do one at a time. Here, we'll just do twice in a row. You're gonna contest that against mine. I'm just gonna see like what some outcomes of some small encounters are.
7.
20.
Okay,
You
so I
encountered some creature that significantly outpowered you.
Gotcha.
And let's do one more.
I turn into a panther and run away.
That's right.
10.
15. This one less significantly, but you were not confident, and so you exited from there as well.
But they're not super common.
They're not like all over the place, but you'll see more than one a day, maybe one or two a day. As far as zombies and other things, you occasionally will see zombie deer, squirrel types of things. They're not like seeing you and ravenously running to you to chomp on your leg or anything. And if you're in animal form, they're generally creatures are not aggressive out here towards you. You remember that from your circle of the night. So yeah, I mean, you're seeing things out there, but in your forays, you're able to handle yourself. When you've encountered some of the ethereal beings or some groups of ghouls or something, you have found that those are challenging for you.
Gotcha.
One question I have is, I think in one of the early leader meetings that the party would have had with the leaders of the villages, Yoshika would have said something like, "Hey, we are brought here because we wanted to get away from the Iron Bell. That is why we were all marked, and we are not seeking to be kings here. We think you should have a place to be your own people. But we do intend for this place to be fighting is not forbidden. And lore is not forbidden." And he'll try to kind of lightly introduce that idea to them from probably the outset. Engage
And
their
there's-
response.
And Diamondback has lots of lore that he would like to transmit. Anybody who wants snake-themed lore, it's available.
Dead snake, like white snake, but a different band.
We don't want to be leaders, except for Diamondback. He can do that thing.
I'm just gonna roll from his Tower of Death.
Behind the scenes, Neno is more fatalistic about it. It's not that she really wants that; it's just that she knows that if they're in any battle with the bell that they can't win, they're going to be losing anyway. So in for a penny, in for a pound. They're going to kill
Yeah, I
us if
was
they see
thinking
us.
that.
They might as well kill us for being loyalists when they see us.
Are you
But the
say
question
that-
is there is like, how scandalous is
Just
that
Yes,
idea?
I'm-
Where if I give a light pass, like, we don't want that to be forbidden.
Especially from the Bone City people, because they seem the most friendly with Iron Bell, at
Yeah.
least that I saw.
Let me say this part, and then we'll take our 10-minute break, just to give everybody a heads up on what we'll do here. There's also a couple other ideas people have about a good way to handle this time. Generally, the people of Wira and Cinderon are there's an underground everywhere. Black market, underground. There always is. That said, the consequences of being involved in some kind of subversive group is just absolute brutality, and the consequences of being involved in a non-subversive group that's just like, keeping a record of gambling wins and losses is absolute brutality. So they need to understand, and that it's going to have to grow. Your reputation has helped some for small bits, but they need to understand what your / everyone's capacity to deal with the Iron Bell is. If y'all are able to keep them safe from two guys coming up and asking for tribute, the way they know to do that is the way that they've all done that their whole lives. You've seen Gary do that. You've seen your townfolk do that. The Iron Bell comes and asks, you give it to them. And if you can give it to them at a low enough cost to the people, they're happy, right? Because this is something everybody would know. This is like common sense. Slavers slave and enslave so that they don't have to give up their own people. Wira is especially common. Other places have that too. Garriott had some kind of trove, apparently, of some minor magical items that he was happy to give to Yat or Griffith, so that they didn't have to give up people or something else. The Saracon people rang the bell, summoning the Iron Bell in order to give them a tribute of the undead that were around. The Iron Bell came and protected the town by taking the threat as the tribute. And in doing so, the Saracon people didn't need to give their people, didn't need to execute people and give them to them as dead, as undead. So it's, and the question is, they know that Yoshka and Neno, some of them know, and some of them believe, and some of them probably believe, and some of them believe that Yoshka and Neno did take a pair of Iron Bell. There are more, but here's the deal, right? And you all know this. 2 Iron Bell come, like Yat and his minion, and they come and take tribute, and you kill them. Bell are going to come next time. And if they don't return, it's going to be 8 or 10 or 20 or 50. And if they don't, it's going to be death riding in swiftly. Right? So the question is, the Iron Bell is bigger than 300 people around a stone town.
How do we know that?
Say it again.
Have we seen the Iron Bell destroy 300 people?
I'm telling you common knowledge.
Okay.
That's very important. No,
The belief of the people.
what you have seen, that's right. You yourselves have seen an army of beasts, for whatever you want, however you want to interpret army, coming to the Oravan, who had 350 people in a cave working with the Iron Bell, who summoned hundreds of beasts. That said, was that all their power? Who knows? But here's what the common knowledge is. Look, the Iron Bell rules with an Iron Bell. Right? Simderon, Wira, Garatone, other places, and no one in any of those places can get away with anything for long against the Iron Bell. This is the common knowledge, right? This is the zeitgeist, because and here's one thing that we've talked about a little bit. I think very early on, I'm just going to re-emphasize this so you'll understand a way that people think about this. The Iron Bell come from the headwaters, right? It's the center of their power, or the seat of their power, as far as anybody knows. And very importantly, just like you have learned and Garatone after Garatone with flayed hands, right? And you've learned to call Simderon after Simderon the Blinding, and you've learned to call Wira Wira after Wira who closes her eyes, right? What people generally think is that the great ruler, the Iron Bell, sends the Iron Bell out from the headwaters. Who is it, they, nobody, maybe people are thinking a mighty king, golden crown, or maybe people are thinking some, giant who storms around in the waters and splashes. I mean, who knows what they're thinking, but there's the seat of all power, the Iron Bell at the headwaters, and he sends out his people, the Iron Bell.
So Belvari's understanding of a lot of that would be a little bit different, because until now, he had never seen the Iron Bell, except as sort of a noise behind them in the forest that they're fleeing from.
A spooky kind of presence.
Yeah, so he'd have a grasp of some of that, but it'd be a lot lighter.
That's right.
Because it's not a day-to-day thing.
That's right. Your people, your family, I mean, in particular, where you grew up, were further out from the headwaters, which means there's a lot fewer Iron Bell, but the beasts are a lot more dangerous. Where you were in Cinder, and so you understand that these people are afraid in those kinds of ways.
Yeah.
That's really different than your own kind of dream of reality. Okay. We'll come back. It is 9:15. Come back in 5-10 minutes, and we can do some stuff.
How's it going, Josh? You're muted.
Yes.
Hi,
Hey,
Aaron.
Aaron. Just dropped off my daughter at camp today. This is the first time that she's been away for multiple days like this.
That's amazing.
Except for like being with my mom and dad for a few days, and that's pretty different. I'm okay with her being with my parents for a few days because I'm sure that her odds of survival increase being with my mom and dad. But being away at camp, it's a little.
She'll be great.
She'll be great. So, how about you guys? Aaron, are you eating an Oreo? Nice. Yeah, you are.
Aaron is muted.
Aaron, you're extremely expressive, but I have no idea what you're saying.
I think maybe she's saying she doesn't know how to unmute it.
I thought I saw something about quantum tunneling or sublimation. I can't.
I decided this summer that what I wanted to do was ride my bike and drink tea, iced tea, and plunk on the banjo.
So
And-
you want to be an Englishman, an Appalachian, and a Dutchman.
Sure.
You want to be Dutch with your bicycle, English with your tea, and a good old West Virginian, Kentuckian with your banjo.
Yeah, that sounds fine. But
Okay.
today, my church had like a church picnic in the park.
Yeah.
This afternoon. So I brought my banjo and sat around plunking on some banjo tunes.
Excellent. Banjo tunes is how they say it in Kentucky, so that's good.
Yep, I got oh, it's not here. I could show you, but there's a thing that sort of hipster buskers do.
Yeah.
That which is you get an old plastic suitcase.
Okay.
And you sit on it.
Right.
And you get a bass drum pedal. It's like the thing that the drummer's foot goes on. You push
Sure.
it down, and it hits. It goes like it hits with
Oh.
a mallet, right?
Uh-huh.
And you put that backwards so that it's
Right.
up against the suitcase,
Right.
and then you can use your heel to thump on it,
Right.
and make sort of a bass drummy sound. And you can put a tambourine on your other foot. And so I had that with my banjo going on.
Going
in the
half
park
Van
today.
Dyke.
Inkatink, Josh,
Yo.
Inkatink.
Yo.
I also, before you got here, I gave everybody their experience from the last several things.
Yeah.
Had experience for the darkness area, evacuating Miradau. Inkatink also did some exploration around Miradau, if you recall.
Yeah.
And some other stuff. You're combined, and you got also some discretionary role play experience. I gave everybody some. So your experience to catch us up to date is 1050.
Nice.
Yeah, that's
Thank
been
you.
over some sessions. So I don't know if that
Sweet.
levels you or not, but if it does, okay. Consider, whenever it does, in this, I think this is probably the last episode where we're going to be doing downtime kinds of things, but we're having a real tone shift in the campaign. So we're getting, towards something.
Cool.
So I just wanted to make sure we had a chance to reestablish the world as y'all are seeing it.
We went
Thank
from
you.
Oregon Trail to Civ 5 really quick.
That's right. That's what it's about to be.
Father and God dysentery.
That's right.
Water.
No, we're past that. Now
We're all
it's
going to die of
earthquakes and
dysentery
fire.
That's right. Alien planes of unspeakable horror.
It's my favorite place.
So,
Iowa?
good question. Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Well, you said alien planes of unspeakable horror, and I said Iowa. Sorry, it was unkind to Iowa. Sorry.
I won't tell.
I will.
Aaron Joy mentioned that it would be possibly helpful to her, and also I could, whatever, it's fine. It's good for me to if we wanted to wrap up early tonight.
Okay.
Just do a little bit more, and she's almost done with her school year, so she's just trying to finish strong.
Indeed.
Why don't we jump back in? Jacob, you had a couple of things you wanted to say,
Yes.
the
First is the magic
mushroom
mushrooms.
experiments.
Yeah. All right. So first roll is a 10. The second one is a 16.
And that's going to be in respectively. That's your.
That's going to be averaged out. Those are both
Yeah.
plus one because I have.
They're
a
each plus one?
to
Okay.
Nature and Arcana. Just
So it's an 11 and a 17.
11 and a 17,
Mhm.
and that's going to be plus 2 after I round those both out.
Mhm.
So just give me a moment to do that.
You're good.
14 divided by 2. So a 14 plus 2, that is a 16 total.
And then roll me one more Arcana check.
Okay.
This is a different thing. I'm trying to see what your insight into it is.
19.
Okay.
Total.
Plus one.
No, 19
18 plus
total.
1. Okay.
18 plus 1.
Yep. There are attributes that people have that are not genetic, like handedness. We're not 100% sure where left-handed, right-handed comes from. Probably something like in utero environmental variables. People think.
Most
Something
likely
like
cytoplasmic epigenetic activators, certainly, but
So, thank you. In the same vein, it is apparent to you now, Talid, that breeding a mushroom with a magic, cap, for example, doesn't consistently produce mushrooms with a magic cap. And with that 19 roll, this is something you could discuss with some other arcanists
peoples.
among you, Diamondback might or something like that. Your suspicion, and it's pretty good, you're pretty strong, you're like, I think this might be how it's working, is that one of the variables at play here is just how much that individual thing grew and absorbed the mist. The magic's coming from the mist, and it's sort of getting concentrated into the thing.
So plant the mushrooms near the what's it called? Lich. Maybe it'll absorb all of its magic.
I'm pretty sure Diamondback would not be opposed to that.
If a lich loses all of its magic, does that count as dying?
Maybe we'll see.
Maybe dormancy, but not dying.
Was there something else you wanted to do besides that?
Oh.
So that's the outcome of your experiment. You maybe grew enough that you could find another one or two that had some magic in it, but it wasn't like a consistent farming type of situation.
Yeah. Okay. The next thing that I wanted to point out, see what happens is last session me and Diamondback sort of discovered that I have a focus, maybe, that my hammer hilt thing is very magically missed.
Morka, the arcanist of Saracon, said that in something like a dream or vision or something, as she was giving all of y'all, normal sorts of exchange of gifts to show goodwill, that she had been told in particular to give you this black stone. It's some of this normal black stone, but it's a particularly, shaped a certain way. It was rounded, like almost like a river stone, smallish. You mounted it. It was a gift to you. She didn't know exactly why, but she was told to give it to you. You mounted it in the end of your hammer. Diamondback was sneaking along, and not sneaking along. He surprised you with a undead creature. You turned and reflexively, maybe not you did it to your knowledge, but a spell was cast, let's say.
Mistakes were made.
That's right. And Diamondback did it with a little additional prompting as being you casting a spell. So tell me what's up.
Feel free to tune in Diamondback whenever you want, but what I heard or what I remember is that you tried to tutor me, said something like that.
That's available and encouraged. Yes.
Do you remember that you were there when he tried to convince us that a lich was not dangerous, and he failed with 1 and a 1? Just keep that in mind.
I mean, he's not gonna like turn me into a lich, as far as I can tell.
Dangerous.
So, we're not going into there. Should be fine.
Dangerous is powerful.
The lich is not.
Did you hear that, Jacob?
Dangerous.
Dangerous is powerful unless it's a bear and trying to eat you.
Now both dangerous and powerful.
Well, that's fair. The point is, Talad is going to very cautiously accept your tuition, as in he just wants to see if Toll the Dead is the cast, or can he cast anything else. He's just looking for, you have your focus, so he expects that you'll know how to find new spells from your focus and do that kind of stuff. So that is also something that he's doing.
What class are you?
Sorcerer.
Okay, so I'm not actually going to be able to teach you very much, because actually, I mean, it's between you and the DM how your magic works, but my magic is based on lore that I know and spells that I know, and they're written down, and I have them from the Snake Clan, and it's like I have to like do something with my mind and make the right gestures, and like I'm a nerd. I have to like program my spells. But if you're a sorcerer, it's not like that for you, I believe.
But Diamondback may not know that.
Right. So, but I'm
probably have not encountered anybody with a focus before ever.
Right. So what I'm trying to do is I'm probably going to show you, like, I'm going to show you, like, how to cast Mage Armor. I'm going to be like, this is a really useful spell that my people have used for hundreds of years. You know, when we're able to get the components usually, but I'm able to cast it without components now because I have this cool thing, and maybe you'll be able to cast it. And I show you like all this writing. Like I transcribe for you something that's like, I have like this cool like bone necklace, and it's got little scratches on the bones. And the scratches are like words and letters in our secret Snake Clan script. And so I like transcribe it for you. Like I scratch it in the dirt, and I'm like, so if you do this and you say this and like you make this gesture, you know, then the magic will be able to flow through you, and it'll create this mage armor around you, which will protect you from harm. And like I'm telling you all this stuff, and I think like if you're a what are you again? Sorry, what's the word?
Sorcerer.
If you're a sorcerer, like, don't you have to connect to like your patron to be able to cast a spell?
That's warlocks. Sorcerers just
Innate.
You have it innately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So like my nerdy words are probably not going to work for you, but I'm willing
Not with that attitude.
I'm willing to, you know, Diamondback gives it the old college try, and maybe we can roll something to figure out what happens. But
I mean, what spells? So you said something about Mage Armor.
mm-hmm.
I have the spell Shield, so I think a good way to learn that is cast Mage Armor, and instead of making an aura of protectiveness, I just make sort of a blap of really, really high concentrate protective energy that lasts half. So,
Nice. So maybe we
Shield-
go through my spell book, like attempting to cast my spells, and they just come out differently from you. And that's where you get your spell list from, or
And
your first
seemingly
introduction to magic.
Okay.
He's a natural.
Good. 9:39. Unless anybody else has anything pressing for this time, this another time. But we'll go ahead and wrap up for the night. If somebody else wants to say something, that's totally fine with me. Enjoy.
Sometime I would like to give people Nino's backstory.
Yeah.
But maybe not tonight. If there's going to be any other campfire, any other night.
Yeah, let's do that. For next week, I have some specific things. I'm assuming we're just back on a normal schedule, so I have some specific things planned. Diamondback, Matt.
Yeah.
Maybe if there's a time we can do a short Diamondback centric thing.
Yeah.
That'd be great. It doesn't have to be long, but to deal with some of the other stuff. Belvari, Dwight, I would also do that with you. Again, it can be basically just independent by your own storylines. And I think those are the only side things at the moment. Although Inkatink, you are one of the things. I'm just going to throw this out there as a note for next time as a prompt. When you came back, you and Diamondback came back. What would you have told everybody else about your excursion?
I think Inkatink and Diamondback pull everybody together and say, look, this is not going to be easy. We're up against a really serious situation. There is a sphere of darkness that is miles and miles across. And Inkatink's focus is probably somewhere in the middle of that. So in order for us to do this, we either need to figure out how to do this while blind and wading through a morass of animals that are also in there, or we need to, figure out something totally crazy that we just don't know yet. Because, right now that's the constraint, is that you can't see anything. Magic doesn't work against it. And we just don't really have a game plan. So I think at this point they're putting it on the back burner, letting it simmer, and trying to, I'm sure Inkatink in his free time is sitting there thinking about it and consternating about it at night, trying to come up with ideas. That's what he thinks about as he falls asleep. But
Turn
Wait.
into a bat and fly to the middle.
I have seen this as well. Do you remember when we were walking through the tunnel, what happened to the unicorn? Did you see it go?
You mean the teleportation circle tunnel?
sure, I don't remember seeing the unicorn disappear. My
I
recollection.
don't know where the unicorn went.
Ah,
The unicorn has been around here.
Inkatink,
Just walking around.
do you?
Or a unicorn.
I think it was like this darkness. The unicorn showed it to me, and it reminded me of the false knight.
Hmm.
Was it like this for you?
I'll just tell you guys, your experience was very, very similar
Yeah,
to the false knight experience.
I think
But
Inkatink
this tortoise
concurs.
works there. The circle.
Say, what did you say?
Don't you remember the circle of the Night Watch? It works in there.
Ooh. Yeah,
Do y'all-
okay. I
y'all
think
remember that?
Inkatink gets really excited. And
Matthew doesn't remember what the Circle of the Night Watch. Oh,
That's-
that artifact.
yeah, that
Doesn't get
Aaron
off
has. Yeah.
When it touches it, can see it.
We should go in because I need to go in too.
Why?
The unicorn has some of her kind in there, and we need to make a teleportation circle, but this is something I cannot do. But haven't you seen Garrett do it, Inkatink?
Yes. Inkatink nods in agreement and shows a kind of bird's eye view of himself doing the teleportation circles for people with minor illusion.
When the unicorn will come to us, and then we must go. You and I must go and help her. She can go to a place that is between everywhere, and make a window, open up a window with her horn to any place. She showed me she has many of her kind stuck in the darkness there, and you remember the dragon. I am bound to pay a debt to him. I must set them free. But I need your help, if you're willing.
Inkatink
I'm
claps his
willing.
hands together and says, all right, all right, all right.
Let's stop
I'm
there.
willing.
We'll pick up this thread elsewhere. But right now, we will call it a night. It sounds like there's a promising avenue for Inkatink to perhaps be able to go towards his focus, and for several of y'all to deal with the, if you feel it, the obligation to the dragon. So, great. Let me do my outro. That's where we'll end this episode. Thanks for listening. You can get more details about the world and the story we're telling at the starfallcollective.com.
Say there, Talid. Congratulations.